reached out to Gang of Seven. We had the injury yesterday to James Washington, so I reached out to Gang of Seven and to try and get some names of potential guys that could be either signed or traded for. These guys and gals around the league keep emergency boards for these types of situations. So just they threw me a few names, and I'll run them down with you guys, see if there's any interest. We got Eric and Zach out on the field still. I think they're finishing up the team stuff right now as I speak.
Yeah, they just kind of wrapped it up, so we're about to head back up to you boys.
Okay, so that sounds good. All right, a couple different names you need to be keep an eye on here. One of them was Darris Slayton, the wide receiver from the New York Giants, was a guy that maybe they felt like a couple of my guys felt like that the Giants might be in a situation where they let some guys go at wide receiver or be interested in moving on from a Darris Slayton type of player. If you follow along what's going on in New York too, there's a lot of people believe that he needs just a change of scenery right there. So that maybe that might be a guy that you could trade for right there with the Giants.
Things were going pretty well for him on the uptick, and then last year kind of the brakes got hit on.
He got exactly right. And I think there was a lot of things with the quarterback situation. Jason Garrett as the offensive coordinator, the head coach, some injuries, things like that always affect how sometimes these receivers.
I'll give it to you. That's the first name that I've heard since James Washington went down where I'm like, okay, now we have something that I want to see maybe a little bit more than Jalen Tolbert.
Yeah. The next name that they mentioned to me was a guy named Denzel Mims from the New York Jets as a possibility as well. Now, if you talk to people in New York with the Jets, he seems to have kind of found it a little bit here. But going into camp, Mims was a guy that maybe that if you were looking to add a guy or trade for a guy, that he was going to be on the block. But I'll be interested to see how that all plays out because, like I say, talking to people in New York, he's having a pretty good camp to start out with. So Denzel Mims, wide receiver with the Jets. Here's another name that's we're all very, very familiar with is Jalen Reagor with Philadelphia with the Eagles. It's a possibility. He was a first-round pick. He was the same draft at CeeDee Lamb. He's really struggled there in Philadelphia. And they're kind of you talk to people there, they say, well, this guy might be a guy that's on the bubble. So if you're looking at it, you say, well, let's get him out of there before it turns into, we could get him here, get him acclimated, get him in the offense, and kind of work with him that way. So Jalen Reagor is another one. And then the last one they mentioned was a guy named Preston Williams from the Miami Dolphins.
Ooh, okay, so this is interesting. Preston Williams, I think, is the most athletically gifted out of this group.
Right.
He also probably has the most off-the-field issues out of this group. Now, the Cowboys have certainly rolled the dice when it comes to this area, and he has a similar, I think, domestic violence type background where he got accused of that. I believe he's also a Mississippi State Bulldog, like Dak Prescott. Yeah. So, I mean, is that an area that the Cowboys want to – is that a road they want to go down again with a player like that? But Preston Williams – and I think we also need to keep in mind, right, who they lose in James Washington. That's an outside receiver. They want a bigger body, and that fits the mold right there of Preston Williams. Maybe Darris Slayton as well, but I don't know about you. He definitely intrigues me from a talent standpoint, maybe more so than some of these other guys.
Another name of guys that's just on the street, if you want to go, Chester Rogers is a player that will be working out. From what I've told is he's a guy that's available right now. He is working out with the Houston Texans, so there's thought that maybe you're going to have to get in there before the Texans to make that happen if you want to get him on board. That's Chester Rogers. And then everybody's to a man was talking about Will Fuller. They say Will Fuller's probably the best and say the healthiest of right now of the guys you're talking.
Did you say healthy?
They mean specifically right now.
Right
now,
now.
In 5 minutes, things could totally change.
That's good. He's healthy right now.
Right now.
So those are some names that we and And they also talked about, I meant to, down here about Hardman, who's with Kansas City.
Oh, McCall Hardman.
McCall Hardman. And they said that he's been a little bit underwhelming and in a contract year.
Interesting.
So
Interesting.
That might be a name that are on people's boards to go and take a peek at right now.
That's
so
another one of those speed guys.
Can we get these guys for like a 5th or a 6th mostly? I don't want to give up anything significant for any of the names you mentioned.
Well, I think you have to look at it this way. The Cowboys are probably going to get 3 compensatory picks for guys that they lost here, right? When you're talking about Wilson, you're talking about Randy, and who else am I missing? I'm missing one more guy that they lost in free agency as well. But there's probably three guys that they're going to get compensatory picks on. So it might be, if you're thinking that, okay, well, hey, we can get a maybe a 3rd or a 4th or even a 5th or a 6th.
Sure.
So if you're counting on potential compensatory picks, you might be willing to give up your own to make that happen. With the situation.
So when you're talking with the gang, do you feel like they're better than the collection of guys out here that you want to give an opportunity to with your Fajokos and?
To me, I would rather have Slayton or guys like that. Hartman. Yeah, I'd rather have guys like that.
Well, those are guys that you've actually seen do it before, so you can
That's
at least
what I'm saying.
have
That's
some type of experience.
If you're gonna tell me this is just gonna be okay, run with Noah Brown out there and hope for the best with Schultz and let's try and play Pollard a little bit as a wide receiver. I would rather have a wide receiver in here. I would rather have a guy that can do the job.
Heck, you've seen Will Fuller have a 100+ yard game and a couple of touchdowns in the NFL.
Yeah.
You're basically just let's cross our fingers and pray that some of these guys can step up and make some plays for us.
Right. So it's Will Fuller, it's Slayton, and it's Hardman. Those are the 3 guys that we feel like could help more than what we already have.
How about you? Would you follow with or Zach with the thing with the guy with Preston Williams?
I like Preston Williams. Now,
the baggage stuff is.
I just don't know how many guys you want to put in your locker room. Now, he's several years removed from this.
Yeah, it's been a while. He's been in the league for a few years and hadn't had any issues other than a couple. He's had some injuries.
So how long do you want to bring that up with him when he hasn't had an issue to your point there? But I think that there is a lot of upside, but. There's upside for us. Miami, if they're looking at getting rid of him, maybe that they've seen enough and they're saying, hey, this guy, we're past the upside point. He just doesn't have it.
Well, he's now at a place in Miami. I was reading about where he hasn't asked for a trade, but he is frustrated. He's talking with the media about saying he doesn't feel like he's getting enough opportunities and stuff like that in Miami because they have kind of rebolstered that wide receiver room out there with guys like Cedric Wilson. We know about Tyreek Hill, and then they got Waddle. They got a bunch of guys over there, so he's just kind of been pushed down. I think that's more of a credit to the guys they've brought in as opposed to an indictment on him because he has been a solid player. Like fantasy football players know, like he's on one of those daily fantasy things. Like he could be just a cheap guy to grab on a random Sunday.
You're watching a lot of Dolphins football.
Yeah, so he's a big guy. He's a big guy, and I think that would be a fun one. I still am a Will Fuller. In the Will Fuller train here, and I wonder how picky they're going to be when it comes to what this is specifically what we want. We want availability and all these different things, so maybe they would be willing to go trade for somebody. But Will Fuller, you can just bring in, sign him right off the street, and you know that, man, if this guy stays healthy, this is a guy that's actually a difference maker and might immediately, other than Turpin, who you're barely going to use offensively more than likely, as he's just going to be kind of a return guy. Will Fuller steps in and is probably the fastest guy on your entire offense.
No question. I just think it's inevitable that dude plays a couple of games and then he's not available for you. That's just literally every single year of his career, that's what happens to him. And I don't think that'll just stop this year.
Do you have an update on Gallup? I saw him working out on those umbilical cords again.
He looked good, yeah. He looked good with the umbilical cords. He's doing the cones. He's doing the cones where he's actually having to plant and turn and stop and cut. And so that was something we saw yesterday.
What kind of cones were those?
Those were just the orange cones.
Oh, the orange.
Orange cones.
The orange.
Yeah. Not.
Were
not
you
like
looking
cones.
for a specific answer?
I don't know. Maybe there was a fun answer of what kind of
lactating cones.
Yeah,
lactate cones.
Lactating cones. Yeah. I kind of feel like though, I need to follow back up. He walked by me yesterday, and I was just kind of watching to see if there's any limp or any noticeable knee scars or anything like that. Everything looked pretty clean with him. Looked like I've watched him work out on those cords before, and felt like that, man, this guy's a lot further along than I thought. And again, not a doctor myself, but I will follow up with him. I maybe the fact that they feel better about him coming back sooner than later might keep them from going out and getting one of these guys.
Yeah, but at the same time, you have your first 2 games looking at the Bucks and then the Bengals. You could be 0-2. I don't know how you would look at that. Like, well, it's just going to be a couple of games, or, hey, guys, we don't have that many hard games. 2 of them happen to be weeks 1 and 2. For me, right now, it comes down to how quickly could you get these guys integrated? Is there upside, or are we just taking on somebody else's project? We have enough projects around here and guys that I like.
That's why I kind of feel like that they might. Again, the names, these are the names that are on NFL boards. And if they're looking at, these are the names I feel like that if you're going to go out and get a guy, that's who. But there's warts with every one of these players.
Mm-hmm.